Hello there everyone, this is Mark 3 and welcome back to FTD Small Fries. Apologies for the showcase video that wound up being what happened last time. No building. That really took way longer than I thought it did, but hey, that's from the depths in a nutshell. This time we are once again having a little action as we continue to show off vehicles. No. We are actually working on the Javelin frigate design this time around. As you can see here, I've got a blank hull sitting around, just ready to be customised and tuned. We've got the very naughty craft over here, which has made a habit of destroying its own weapon testing platform. Blooming Javelin. And we have some guns and doodads over on the platform itself, ready to be transplanted and integrated into the main ship. But what are these new systems? So let's give you a quick walkthrough on what I have done here. I have a new anti-missile turret to replace the pop-up turrets on the actual craft. Those will need to be stripped out as well, actually. And I have got two new primary cannons to replace the thud gun, which I think is, while it looks good, it is... I feel like it's fundamentally compromised by the overall size of the turret in question. If it was a much bigger turret, I would be just fine with it being 4 separate barrels like that, but on such as compact turrets, I think the individual guns lack performance, shall we say. So, are you disabled? Yes, you are. I took out your remote. Okay, right, moving on. So, to start out with this platform, I wanted to get something smaller and faster firing. That was to help deal with smaller enemies in a reasonable fashion, and still hopefully having enough punch to do nasty things to the big guys. So I've rigged up this particular testing arrangement here. This is testing. Well, I tested 100mm at first, then I upped it to 150s, and then I settled on something that I kind of like using. It's not a perfect thing by any means. But this shell is currently firing this one here, which is a hollow point high X. Though I was testing sabos, I was testing straight hollow point, I was testing frag shells, I was testing different combinations of different things, and trying to keep the weapon system manageable, because while I was poking around with it, this weapon system actually got like 3 times its current size, which was never fitted in one of these turrets. So that was useful. I also have this rigged here. This is for testing purposes. It's this is the wall you shoot. I'll turn off my repair tentacles for the moment. And then I have this ACB set to fire every 0.1 seconds the weapon system within range, which fires this cannon at the target. So, yeah. Though unfortunately I forgot, I made this platform indestructible. Don't do that. Interesting. Okay, enough testing. Stop. Right, I forgot. Maybe it's because it's... I don't know. But yeah, that was doing something, but I think it's because I had the entire thing indestructible, it wasn't doing anything. Even the HE shell was doing something to the metal, but in this case it doesn't look like it's done anything. It's just... yeah. That normally works. Normally works. It's good for testing, just make sure your craft isn't indestructible before you test. I think that's probably what the big takeaway from that one. Anyway, moving on. Well, I make things... oh, wait, it's... oh. Of course. It turned them both. That's why it looked like damage, but it wasn't. Okay. Yeah. It's actually taking damage now. I'm the best at this. Yeah. There you go. Right. Let's stop the noise. Okay, so. And I've also turned on indestructibility. I accidentally turned indestructibility back on. I am absolutely the best at this. So, That was just like hollow point HE shell from this 150 cannon, and consecutive hits was doing area damage, and as you can see, it knocked through a 3-meter thick solid metal plate in not too bad a time frame. So against heavy armor, sustained fire, this thing can actually do some good. Though I've taken it a step further as I started tweaking the basic turret, which is this one over here, and that is because it's a hollow point detonation method. So it hits something, hollow point makes it go off. I've made it interchangeable. I swap out the shell behind the hollow point for whatever payload I want. So I've got HE, I've got a frag shell, and I've got a flak shell for 3 different variants. So this is a multi-shell cannon just for some extra flexibility. I will note that EMP behind the hollow point seems to only trigger half the time at best, so it's not very reliable compared to a pure EMP shell, as far as I can tell. Maybe I'm right there, maybe I'm not, but it just didn't feel like it was doing much, so that's why there's no EMP version. But another advantage is because they're all hollow point and then single shell module, all of these have the same speed, so the gun doesn't need to re-aim based on the shell very much at all. So yeah. So here we go. From the thud gun, which is this, I have gone to this, which is part of what makes me think that these guns are compromised by the fact that it's split into 4. Because I've been able to use the limited space in the neck here and the entire thing just for a single cannon mechanism rather than like 4 different cannon mechanisms. So it's all unified into this single treble barrel 150mm with a very high rate of fire actually. I mean, if you look at the stats, 119.8 is what this thing can do. And this thing is devastating against very small, very light, very fast targets, while still actually having enough punch to at least do something against moderately armoured targets. Heavy armour is probably not going to do much unless something knocks holes in the armour, but we'll get to that in a second. But this is a light target slayer above all else. So let's get suitable light targets, which we saw the destroyer struggling with in the last combat episode. So episode before last, roughly, at this point. Oh no, the Deepwater Guard are attacking. It's a swarm of hoplites. Not very threatening, we must admit. But it is also, well, it's a little bit larger than the group that the Javelin struggled with last time. Admittedly, the cannon was not doing very much at all, the third gun, but we had to rely on the missiles mostly to take them out. Especially, I think, if I recall, the cannon got disabled partway through. But yeah. These guys were a threat to the Javelin in its existing configuration, which was this one here. But this time, I'm going to turn this 150 loose on them. So let's get the AI up. It was on the basic control system, which is this one, I think. No, wait, it's this one. That's in 250. Yeah, this one. Turn on. Right, and let's see what it does. Decent fire rate, 1 down for the count already. So this is what I meant when I said it's very capable against lighter targets. Along with being faster firing, that it can easily switch around as well. Did I set you up to do target prioritization? There we go, so it just shoots whatever's closest really, but yeah. It's just shooting ducks in a barrel basically at this point. And the rate of fire allows it to easily switch between smaller targets. So that's why I like this thing. It's a very flexible weapon against small targets. While firing fast enough, it can easily forgive missing things. So yeah. Hoplites are no match for this weapon system. As the last of them is, yeah, just evaporates. There it goes. Oh no, we're under attack again. This time it's an Atlas. Ooh, scary. I know. This is not a good example, honestly, for Well, it's not a good example as in a target that this is meant to be helping with, but it's a good example because it's a lot tougher than a hoplite. Yeah, that's the Atlas in a nutshell. It's tougher than a hoplite. You can take that to marketing. Mostly it's got metal and wood, so it's got modest armor, a bit heavier than the hoplite. It's also a much larger craft, which is where we can start to see some of the differences in the weapon. So, against the hoplite, which is really small, this 150 was great. Against an Atlas, it takes a good bit longer to try and deal with it. Just because of the size of the target, honestly. And because aim points don't work the way they used to. So, yeah, it's knocking blocks off. It's able to do something. It's already sent the Atlas into the stratosphere because that's the design flaw of the Atlas itself. But, yeah, it's been firing for a very short while now. Let's pause it. And as you can see, it's done some damage, but it's mostly superficial. And that's because while the 150 is great against small or weakly armoured targets, against anything with any kind of thickness, and that's what the Atlas has. The Atlas is a very thick boy. It struggles a bit to knock through. It doesn't have the raw damage to try and deal with things like this. So it's not good against bulkier crafts or heavily armoured crafts. It's mostly against light stuff or against damaged targets where there's weaknesses that the shells can try to punch through and exploit. So that's where the sister cannon comes in. Or its sibling, I should probably say. I'm not sure if a sister or a brother. I'm a bit confused about the name convention at the moment. So, yeah. So, this is a dual 250 turret built to the same spec, fits into the same turret housing, fits into a similar sized turret cap. I just haven't built a cap for it yet. So, it's dual 250. So, it's got a big enough punch to try and do something. It was actually a 500, but I decided I wanted faster elevation and faster rate of fire, so I swapped it to a double 250 instead, and I think I've got a very flexible medium for a small craft like this. That's something odd I've noticed, by the way. It feels like a 500mm in a small turret is not as viable as it used to be. I feel like I get more mileage with the APS changes out of lower caliber systems. For a 500 I really want a bigger system overall just to help get a bit more fire rate out of it, but the 250 is not too bad. So let's get the stats up for it at least. Bring up the HUD. Yep, you can stop that. You are very happily trying to chip away at the Atlas, thank you. So this guy is configured for 24.7 RPM versus 25.2. I think that's one thing that the new APS system has done. It's raised the skill ceiling a bit. To get the most out of a compact turret like this, I feel like you have to tinker more with it. Just trying to balance the weapon, the size, the shells. There is some depth there. By the way, don't take it out of context, I'm not calling the new APS system perfect. It is absolutely not. But there are some good points mixed in with the bad points that everyone is very happy to spot, so that's why I've always been kind of meh about the new APS system. It's good, but it's also absolutely horrible. Anyway, moving on. This one is firing 3-meter shells, so as you can see it's a heavier shell type. It's fitted with these two, so again, multi-shell system. In this case, we are going for armor-piercing payload shells. In this case, we've got a HE and we've got a frag. The frag is set to the maximum dispersal rate, so most damage it can possibly do. Which, if we get the 250 setting for it, this particular shell kicks out 13 shells in a 180-degree cone, so all over the darn place, and each one is doing nearly 2,000 damage raw at 6 AP, so it detonates a few meters inside the initial impact, and then it flicks all over the darn place, which should be, for most craft, in a more vulnerable area, so the AP isn't as bad. But this is a lot of raw damage in this shell. The companion shell is a 1925 explosive, almost 10 meters blast radius. So again, punch through outer armor, pummel it. They use bleed bases as well, which makes them a bit less accurate, but it increases the speed and so increases their penetration capability. But these guys will struggle against truly heavy armor, but they are decent enough against most lighter types of armor, so they should be able to knock holes in an Atlas pretty effectively, I think. The 25 RPM is like, it fires every few seconds. Not too bad. Let's get that involved as well, supporting the 150. So I'll turn that one's controller on, and we'll cut it loose. Atlas, your reign of terror ends here. And yeah, look at that. It's getting shredded pretty hard now. The lack of accuracy on the 250 is a concern, but we can try to mitigate that with a longer barrel or stuff like that. It's just sadly a part of the nature with a bleed base on it. But yeah, shortly after the 250 opened up, the Atlas started plummeting towards the water. So I think it shows it's a bit more effective. It's slower firing, which means it's going to be less useful against smaller, faster targets, but that's where the 150 comes in. So, that is something that Dammer suggested when I showed him these systems. Mounting 2 of them, one of each type on the same hull, and I think the hull can actually handle that. So that's definitely going to be one version of the Javelin I'm going to try and do, just like a 250 and a 150. Just working together on the main ship itself. So it's a bit more of a gunship style thing. Anyway, enough of that. I think the last thing I need to say is these are attempts to recreate and modify the anti-missile system. And I think I've wound up settling on this thing. It's meant to be deck mounted. The pop-up I think weakened the armor, because it left massive holes and they just routinely got shelled out of existence at the start of the fight. So yeah, hopefully these will be a bit tougher and less tempting targets, but we'll have to see about that. Before that though, it's time to start building. Interesting little factor here. The Javelin 250 with turret cap costs just over 10,000 resources. The 150 actually costs 13.3, though that's mainly because you've got more loads and things installed in that. So, ironically, the heavier turret is also the cheaper one. I just thought that was interesting enough to maybe warrant showing. I'm going to have to... Well, I'm going to move that forward thing there, but... there you go, that's where the 250 is probably going to sit, I think. Because I want it to be able to angle relatively well in most directions. Though, again, at Dammer's recommendation, it suggested having the 150 available higher up for all-around firepower. So that would put it somewhere around here if I wanted to have clear firing past the other one. So, yeah, I'm going to have to raise this up a little bit just to give it extra clearance. But that's because the turrets are a little bit on the bulky side. Well, to be fair, the turrets are actually a bit smaller than the turret cap on the thud gun, but I'm still going to have to adjust this design a little bit. Maybe further back? Not sure. Alright, just to get an idea of what it's going to seem like. I think this will work, actually. I might have to do something about the forward anti-missile. That's a concern. But this is with the 250 mounted in a forward angle position. It's going to have some firing restrictions on it. But the 150 will have all-around coverage, and more importantly, there isn't actually any conflict with putting an anti-missile turret on the back with the 150. Well, not really. But for the most part, this thing is meant to be trying to fight... it's circles, so it's meant to be at a broadside anyway, so that's roughly where it's meant to be. So yeah, that's kind of how that's going to turn out, I think. And as you can see, there's no problems with them turning either. They have full degrees of turning. I will, however, have to extend the arm upwards a little bit to cover the 150's mechanism in an adequate manner. And since the armor standard on this craft is 2-meter metal plates, there is just enough space to try and do that, actually. So that should be okay. Okay, I guess now is a good time to talk a little bit about one of the philosophies I'm bringing forward into this, as I rebuild that stuff when I didn't mean to. Whoops. And that is, well, decentralized, I think is probably what's best to describe here. That's armor piercing, AP, okay, yep. Oh, did it actually capture the right things? If it did, then interesting. Does it? So does this thing now remember this stuff? So assign all that. Okay, decentralized. One of the problems with the previous version is everything was sent in one spot. So it was one spot for ammo, one spot for power, stuff like that for key systems. So when it actually got knocked out, it had trouble. Okay, it hasn't remembered. Good to know. I'm going to have to redo this. So, my plan is to have small engines. My plan is to have ammo caches in several spots rather than just one. You know, that kind of stuff. As I delete and reset ammo supply. Actually, that's I only need to remove the half of those. No, wait, this is the heavy one. What am I doing? Okay, right. Moving on. As I say all this, I am messing up quite badly in the background. So, decentralized. There will be smaller power plants, smaller ammo caches, smaller resource caches, but they will be harder to knock out. Is, I think, the key of what I was going for there. Okay. I'll also mention ratios as well, which is the other reason I decided to start talking while doing this. And that is, I never actually mentioned shot ratio for the cannons. They do have one, or they are meant to have one. I just accidentally gave the back cannon settings for the forward cannon and stuff like that, so yay me. So, the 250, well, it's half and half between the HE and frag content. That is kind of, should be fairly easy to spot that one. It was a very likely one, at least to me. I don't know if it was likely or not, but that's what it was. But the 150, the way I've got it configured, or the way I'm reconfiguring it now, and it was configured this way on the platform, it's half set to the hollow point frag content, which is that one, and then the other half was set to all the explosives. But from there, it was set roughly 1/3 flak, so that's just to help it try and find weak spots in the enemy armor and do a little bit of damage. And then, yeah, about this ratio. And then it was 2/3 HE for a bit more concentrated, less spread out, but more powerful explosive attack. So that's why it's a variable performance turret, and trying to do several things at once. I think I'm going to go back to using multi-shell types systems, in all honesty, because, well, yeah, they do lend a bit more flexibility to a weapon system if you can implement them properly. Also, by the way, I've installed the ammo customizers just here, dead center, so hopefully where they're going to be at less damage. I've even lifted them up off the base floor again, so torpedoes shouldn't cripple them as easily either. I will mention though again, this is like because I've focused on getting the turrets as strong as they can be. That means I've had to offload essential systems like the ammo customization, and I'll have to do local web controls as well on the actual craft itself. So that's something to be aware of, and it's an important design choice when you've got limited space. It's like, what are you going to spend your space on? Is the turret going to be as literally strong as possible, or are you going to compromise that for convenience by having things like weapon controllers and things actually mounted in the turret base, where you'll never lose track of them and the turret will always have them as long as it's standing, but it means you'll have less space to dedicate to the actual turret itself. You know? Does that make sense? I hope it does. I guess it's just like optimizing extremely limited volume more than anything else, isn't it? And I think that'll do for a turret cap for this thing. It's just mostly using the original decking, but it's got 2 meter metal protection around it, so yeah, that looks alright, I think. I should probably angle it forward though to keep with the rest of the aesthetic. That will give more space for some longer missiles if I put some missiles there too. Anyway, yeah, that's enough blathering that. Let's keep on going. Those deck guns may have looked nice and they added extra firepower and all that jazz, but well, you can see the mess it made of the peripheral armour. So, yeah, this is all the spots where the local weapon controllers and things had to be tunnelled into literally into the sides of it. That's why there's so many massive gaps in the armour at the moment. Was it worth it? It was more DACA, there is that, but it did kind of compromise durability, so because local weapon controller just isn't as tough as good old blocks of metal, so not sure if I'm going to reintegrate some of those into the design. It's an option. What do you want, durability or firepower? I might keep these pits though, because I do need to get some extra detection in, and the rear turret has been lifted, so it won't get in the way of the barrel swinging around anymore. There is that. And yeah, you can see what I've gone with this. It's just like following the curve of the ship itself. I think I'll add a ladder to get over this bit here at some point though. So, yeah. Continuing on. Alright, we are not quite there, I don't think, but this is where I'm going to call it for this particular episode. We have gone ahead and... hang on, I just want to get rid of the freaking tool. Go away, thank you. Right. So, what have we got? We have increased and diversified many of the resources. There's still internal space to give us room for some missile weaponry and stuff like that, but overall this is a bit cheaper and overall a bit more capable as well, I think, as well. So definitely an upgrade going on here. Resource storage has been increased from about 11,500 to 15,000. The ammo storage is only at 2/3 of its previous value, so 8,800 versus about 12,000. It has, however, been split. There's still a big pocket at the back here, but there's now a pocket at the front as well, so we've separated the ammo storage. Losing one will not shut down all weapons now. Power supply, we've still got a central engine at the back, because that's where there was the most room. It's slightly weaker, but it's also slightly smaller compared to the existing one. But it is also supported by another 600 horsepower backup engine situated here next to the ammo customizers, and what has actually become the primary AI core. So we've got central AI there in the middle of the ship as well, most protected section. We've got some resources stashed along the sides of the ship, but below that we've also got a backup engine in the form of a electric drive, which provides another 2,700 raw horsepower to the ship if required. Though between the two fuel engines, this ship already has more engine power than the previous ship did in total, so that's just backup and diversification going on there. Back here below the small ship turret, the 150, we have got the two AI cores. We've got the Javelin Light AI, which controls the weapons meant to go after smaller targets, and we've got the Javelin Heavy AI, which is for focusing on the bigger threats, so that currently has control of the 250 versus the 150. There is a wireless, by the way, on the central AI as well. It's tucked away just inside it there, and that's going to be to give that AI core connection to all of the detection capabilities and stuff, as well as the anti-missile turret, which is under that AI's control. And there's some extra resource storage and things going on at the back here, though the rear armour has been reinforced somewhat. I'm still not decided about if I'm going to mount a anti-missile on the front of the ship here, because that might interfere with the firing arcs of the 250. In fact, I might even move this AI detection system, which I left in after last time. But yeah, from here I am actually going to hesitate and let you guys get your hands on this episode for a day or so before I proceed with the rest of this build. So next time I'm thinking a half episode building. I've skipped over more raw building and random talking to focus on trying to get this thing installed properly, and I think that's probably going to work out for a different balance in the quality of production. I should mention, by the way, that these ammo systems have 3-meter separation from anything nearby, so they won't damage stuff when they get blown up. Or they shouldn't damage much when they get blown up. They will cause damage, but that's because it's a small craft. So yeah. Any thoughts on where this craft is going will be welcome, of course, and we will see what comes of it. It will see combat next time as we go back into the campaign, and I am thinking maybe a restart is in order, because we got wiped out there, so frankly it's either wait and hope we don't get attacked, or it's restart and get access to our initial resource pocket again. Because let's be honest, we've made 0 progress basically. I am a very slow starter in the campaign, aren't I? But things have been happening, so hey. There we go. So, this has been Iron Mark 3, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching me working on the Javelin and explaining what I've come up with to try and improve its performance. And I'll catch you all some other time. See you all later.